Hi, everyone. Allow me to start by saying nobody owes you anything. My fellow educators and I agree that all too often we see a large population of people who have taken the attitude that the world owes them, seemingly just for their mere presence on Earth. Well, if that's how you think, you're in for some major challenges in your life. An interesting phenomenon I observed is that when people feel they're entitled and do not get immediate gratification that might fulfill their desires, they flake out and take on the persona of victim. So let's begin by looking at the definition of the term victim. Let me bring up a slide here for you. Now, if you take a look at the right side of the screen here, you'll see that there's a definition at the top of the page that I extrapolated directly from the Merriam-Webster dictionaries. Let's take a look at that. There are three primary definitions that seem to be in play most of the time that I've seen. One that is injured, destroyed, or sacrificed. One that is subjected to oppression, hardship, and mistreatment. One that is tricked or duped. Do you feel as though you fit into any of these categories of the definition of victim above? Well, all I got to say is get over it. I want to repeat, nobody owes you anything. Your success is dependent on how hard you work toward attaining your goals. Do not be a victim. Do you look for the negative in your surroundings, or do you look for success? Believe me when I say, if you look for the worst, you'll almost assuredly make it happen. If you want to fail, you will. Your mind is a powerful thing, and how you use it determines everything you do. As someone who has faced a multitude of chaos, misery, and even death, I can confirm the idea that what you choose to believe is true. You can make true by your mindset and how you approach any issue. Take responsibility for your success and failures. When you fail at something, avoid immersing yourself in a pity party, which often includes placing blame on someone else rather than facing the fact that you might not have performed at your best because something you did. Instead, step back, honestly assess what went wrong, ask what you could have done better, and what you can do to correct your path to success the next time you set out to achieve something. To illustrate this, I want to take a look at a couple of guys that were my students. Let's take a look at the slide. If you look at the left-hand side of the slide that I've gotten up here for you, we have Joe and Albert, some bulleted items discussing each one of them. But let's talk about Joe first. Joe was a bright individual who attended my law classes in actual classroom settings, which normally consisted of 15 to 25 students. Attendance was extremely important because my lectures covered virtually everything students needed to learn on given days. Plus, I always displayed a complete outline on the whiteboard for each day. All one had to do was listen, take notes from the outlines, and add information when it was appropriate. Students were encouraged to ask questions and engage in debate, which generally stimulated the learning process. I maintained a mantra for all my classes that went like this: I will spoon feed the information to you and hold you to a very high standard. Additionally, if you do not attend class, it's the same as not showing up for work. If you do not show up for work, who needs you? You will be fired. It's as simple as that. Since many of my students came from disadvantaged backgrounds, I wanted to put everyone on an equal plane to better the learning process. The method proved to be successful over the years. I was amazed how hard most of the students worked. And then came Joe. It was obvious Joe was a bright student. At the beginning, he showed up on time, appeared to take copious notes, even asking the appropriate questions that indicated he was committed to learning. Soon, though, I noticed the appearance of his cell phone. I was a bit irritated by this because I had a steadfast rule against cell phones in my classes and asked him to put the device away. At first, sulking like a spoiled child, he begrudgingly complied. Victim. Joe could not follow the rules, however. I noticed he was sneaking the device out of his book bag and placing it under his notebook. Apparently, he mistook me for being brainless. He was so consumed with pointless cell phone text conversations during class time, he seemed unaware that I was on to his childish actions. I must say, Joe caused me to be more creative. When I realized he was again playing with his phone instead of taking notes, it was obvious he was not listening to my lecture. The proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, as the saying goes, was when after a specific concept had been discussed by the class ad nauseum, he asked a question that verified he had not listened to a single word of my lecture. And worse, he had not paid attention to the class discussion and debate that had centered on the subject. The pattern quickly evolved into what amounted to disrupting the class to accommodate his infantile bent on being a victim, because he did not want to do what he was supposed to do. When I refused to disrespect other students in the class by wasting time covering the material again, he stomped out of the classroom and seemingly left the campus. Victim. After that, Joe began arriving to class late and tried to play the same game. It goes without saying that he failed the next few quizzes. Arriving late more and more, he complained that he had to drive many miles to get to school. I reminded him that it was he who chose to enroll at the school, and its distance from his home only seemed to become an issue when he had been called upon to do what every other student had to do. Moreover, I reminded him that several other students lived farther away from school than he, but managed to attend class every day. Victim. I reminded him that he had to stop blaming others for his own failures. As expected, he stomped out of the classroom. Victim. To my surprise, on this occasion, he did not leave the campus, but instead filed a complaint with the school's administration claiming unfair discrimination. What discrimination? When called to a hearing, I was amused by Joe's attempts to play victim. He fabricated an amazing list of purported offenses, alleging that his rights had been violated. I simply responded that any discrimination I may have exhibited was that I will not tolerate insubordination, laziness, and attempts to disrupt the learning process owed to the rest of his class, period. Joe is a prime example of someone who played victim at every opportunity and blamed everyone and everything else for his failures. Wallowing in self-pity, he was the ultimate example of victim mentality. Now let's take a look to the right there on Albert. You see the menu where I have some bulleted items regarding Albert. Let's talk about Albert. Albert was an enforcer for a prolific street gang in Los Angeles who just wanted to break out. He wanted to have a normal life so he could stay out of jail and earn for his infant daughter and new wife. When he began his time with me, he endured a multitude of problems when just trying to read and comprehend the material. A drug abuser from the age of 12 years, he was trying to quit. We worked together, successfully making use of many of the techniques which will be discussed in future videos. As IQ measures go, I would describe Albert as a person of average intelligence, but he chose to face his life challenges and succeed in his quest for a normal life. He spent long hours after class reading and rereading material, not stopping until he understood it. It became a ritual for him to arrive to class and proudly display an outline he prepared the night before, in which he responded to the prior day's assignment, discussion, or lecture. He wanted me to see how hard he was trying. He was adapting to his newly chosen environment in a positive way. Reading comprehension was only one of his challenges. It was common for Albert to come to class with lumps and bruises resulting from a beating he suffered the night before because the homies did not want him to leave the gang. His strength shone through when no matter what they did to him the night before, he was always prepared for class. I was amazed when, much like a fox, he learned from his environments, old and new, and forged a path to success by negotiating his way out of the gang. He cleaned himself up and stopped getting loaded on crystal meth, another significant success. Lastly, he blossomed into a resolute student who, despite all the negative baggage that was his life, completed his curriculum of law-based courses with a high GPA and secured employment in a law office as a paralegal. So let's take a quick look at these two menus with both Joe and Albert on there. You can see the bulleted items and how demonstrably they oppose each other. Do you want to be a victim? You can follow Joe's lead. Do you want to be a success? You can follow Albert's lead. Hold on just a second here. Let me bring you back. All right, welcome back. There you have it. You can be a victim and blame everyone else for your failures, or you can dig down and find a way to succeed. Dig down within yourself and find a way to succeed. Will you experience some failures along the way? Of course. So what? I'm convinced that every negative thing in our life, every negative challenge we face, takes us to our destinies. It directs us to our destiny. Do not waste time by blaming others for your lack of commitment. Just focus on what needs to be done and do it. That being said, as this series of videos moves forward, we're going to examine your diamond in detail with each facet and address different areas of human psychological composition, and we'll offer you a basic structure to help you prepare for any type of exam. While there are people who seemingly have no problem studying or preparing for test taking, I believe most of us still face certain obstacles for a variety of reasons. Any one or combination of these impediments may be what is preventing you from achieving the scores you want. It's my goal for you to walk away from this series feeling more confident with your approach to test taking. Thanks much.